A 120-pound pit bull was found chained to a guardrail on Interstate 65 in the middle of July. No water, no shade. The chain was so tight he couldn't lie down. 40 cars passed every minute. Nobody stopped. Until one woman pulled over, walked back along the highway shoulder, and spent 11 minutes prying the chain free with a tire iron. What this dog did 8 months later at 2:14 a.m. is the reason she's still safe today. His name wasn't Bruno yet. He didn't have a name. The chain around his neck had worn the skin raw, leaving a ring of dried blood beneath his collar. His ribs were visible through his chocolate brown coat. His white chest was caked with mud and road dust. His eyes were open, but he wasn't looking at anything. He had stopped expecting help. A highway maintenance crew had called animal control that morning. They were told someone would come within 48 hours. In July heat on asphalt that reached 140 degrees, 48 hours was a death sentence. Paige was driving home from her sister's house in Montgomery when she saw him. She almost missed it, just a shape by the guardrail. She was doing 70 in the right lane. Something made her look twice. She pulled over 200 yards past him, put her hazards on, and walked back along the highway shoulder with trucks blowing past her at full speed. When she reached him, the dog didn't growl. He didn't bark. He didn't even lift his head. He just looked at her with eyes that had already given up. Paige knelt on the hot asphalt and felt the heat burn through her jeans. She touched his head. His skin was on fire. She tried to unhook the chain, but the padlock was rusted shut. She ran back to her car, grabbed a tire iron from the trunk, and spent 11 minutes prying the chain free, while cars honked at her for blocking the shoulder. When the chain finally broke, the dog collapsed onto his side. Paige carried 120 pounds of dehydrated, overheated pit bull to her back seat. She still doesn't know how she did it. She drove straight to the nearest emergency vet. They said another 3 hours in that heat, and he wouldn't have made it. They asked what his name was. Paige looked at him, this broken, exhausted, abandoned dog lying on a steel table with an IV in his leg, and said, "Bruno." The first month, Bruno existed in Paige's house like a ghost. He didn't bark, didn't play, didn't wag. He drank water obsessively, sometimes for minutes straight, like he was afraid it would disappear. He slept in the corner of the living room, never on anything soft, always on the hard floor, always facing the door. Paige left treats by his bed every night. Every morning, they were untouched. He ate only from his bowl, only when she wasn't watching. Week 3, Paige was sitting on the floor folding laundry. Bruno was in his corner, 10 feet away. Without warning, he stood up, walked across the room, and lay down beside her, not touching her, just beside her, close enough that she could hear him breathing. Paige didn't move. She kept folding. She pretended it was nothing, but her hands were shaking. The next night, he did it again, and the night after that. By month 2, Bruno slept at the foot of her bed. By month 3, he followed her everywhere: kitchen, bathroom, front porch. If Paige left a room, Bruno left the room. If she sat, he sat. Not clingy, watchful, like he had decided that the woman who stopped on a highway was the one thing he was never going to lose. I see you still haven't subscribed. That honestly breaks my heart. We put everything into these stories. Hit subscribe now. You need to hear what happens next. Here's what most people don't know about pit bulls. They bond harder than almost any other breed. Once a pit bull decides you're their person, that bond doesn't break. It doesn't fade. It becomes the center of their entire world. Trainers call it Velcro dog syndrome. Bruno had it, and 8 months later, that bond saved Paige's life. Paige had ended a relationship 5 months before she found Bruno. It hadn't ended well. When she left, he didn't accept it. Paige filed a report. Nothing stopped him. She lived alone in a house at the end of a quiet street in Hoover, Alabama. And now, Bruno. It was a Tuesday night in March, 2:14 a.m. Bruno started growling, not barking, a low, deep, rumbling growl that Paige had never heard before. He was standing at the bedroom door, stiff, ears forward, every muscle locked. Paige sat up. "Bruno, what is it?" Then she heard it. The front door handle. Someone was trying it. Paige's blood went cold. She grabbed her phone. Footsteps moved along the side of the house, toward the back door. Bruno tracked the sound, his head turning, his growl deepening. The back door handle rattled. Bruno exploded. He launched himself down the hallway, 120 pounds of muscle hitting the back door with a force that shook the walls. He barked with a fury that Paige didn't know existed inside him. Deep, violent, thunderous barks that sounded like they came from something twice his size. The rattling stopped, the footsteps ran. Paige heard a car start and tires screech 2 blocks away. She called the police. They found shoe prints in the mud outside both doors. They matched a pattern from 2 previous reports Paige had filed. Marcus was arrested the following week. The officer who took Paige's statement looked at Bruno, sitting calmly beside her, his massive head resting against her thigh. "That dog knew," he said. "Before you heard anything, that dog knew." Some stories are too important to keep to yourself. If this one hit you, you already know what to do. Paige broke down that night after the police left. She sat on the kitchen floor and Bruno walked over and placed his head on her knee. The same dog who had been chained to a guardrail, left to die in 140-degree heat while the world drove past. That dog heard a threat to his person and put himself between her and danger without a single second of hesitation. "They left you on the side of a road," Paige whispered, "and you still chose to protect someone? How?" Bruno pressed harder into her lap. His tail moved slowly. That was his only answer, and it was enough. Today, Bruno is 5. He still drinks water like it might run out, but every night, without fail, he does the same thing. He checks the front door, he checks the back door. Then he walks to Paige's bedroom, lies down beside the bed, and faces the hallway. The dog the world left chained on a highway became the reason she feels safe in her own home. Because sometimes the ones who were never protected become the greatest protectors, not because they were trained, because they remember what it feels like to have no one, and they refuse to let it happen to someone else. Would you stop on a highway for a chained dog, or would you keep driving? Have you ever had a dog who protected you when no one else could? Tell me in the comments.